Hi, I'm Cassie Cash, that's Shakespeare Girl. Easter is one of the biggest holidays on the Christian calendar. It is celebrated worldwide. As my family and I were preparing to celebrate Easter this weekend, I got to wondering how Shakespeare would have celebrated Easter. Did he have some of the same traditions that we did? How was it different in England from the US? And so this week we're asking the question, did Shakespeare celebrate Easter? In Britain, Easter is celebrated as the first Sunday after the first full moon following the first day of spring in the northern hemisphere because they wanted to pick the most complicated day to celebrate this apparently. The Friday before and the Monday after are bank holidays and schools close for 2 weeks in celebration of the Easter holidays. In the 16th and 17th century, it was celebrated a lot differently than it is today, but I was able to find some of the traditions that William Shakespeare would have had going on around him or might have even participated in himself during the Easter celebration. It was popular for the monarch to wash the feet of selected poor as a sign of humility. And starting with Henry IV, the same Henry IV that Shakespeare wrote about in his Henry IV plays, they would do what's called royal Maundy, which is when a man and a woman, one for each year of the sovereign's age. It was Henry IV who decided that that's how many it would be. But then the monarch would give out money to these selected senior citizens. They were usually people who had done a particular service to the community. Now, the Easter eggs got its start because Christians weren't allowed to eat meat during Lent. So that meant any animals or animal products they couldn't have. And they would preserve their eggs for later by boiling them. And then they would, after Lent, when they were breaking the fast, they would give these eggs to the poor who couldn't afford meat for their Easter celebrations. Both dyeing eggs as well as decorating them was popular during Shakespeare's lifetime. Actually, they would often dye the eggs red to commemorate Christ's blood and his death and resurrection is what Easter was celebrating. So they would dye the eggs red in honor of him. Henry VIII actually got sent an egg in a silver case by the Vatican. So definitely by Shakespeare's time, this idea of decorating the eggs was well established. The Easter bunny seems to be a largely German tradition. It was around during the 16th century, but I can't find anything that says the Easter bunny was popular to England. I did find some references to hare pies, where apparently they made pies around this time of the year with rabbit meat. But that was the only reference to an Easter bunny I could find in England. If you know the history of the Easter bunny in England during Shakespeare's time, please share that with me because that was the one thing I wasn't able to find real conclusively. Traditionally, Easter was a good time to get married. So the tradition we have today of dressing up around Easter started because people dressed up because their friends and neighbors would be getting married that day. Also, in Shakespeare's time, Christians were required to wear new clothes on Easter. And Mercutio refers to this in Romeo and Juliet when he's kind of kidding with Benvolio and telling Benvolio that Benvolio is kind of a hothead and likes to start fights. And one of the phrases he uses is, "You would start a fight with a man, for wearing his new doublet before Easter." And that is the only reference to the word Easter that we find in Shakespeare's plays, but he indirectly references to Good Friday, Black Monday, and Maundy Thursday in different ways in several places in his plays. And there's a lot of overlap of reference between, they had the idea of the divine right of kings and Jesus being a king, and he plays on these themes a lot in his plays as well. Some practical celebrations that would have existed in Shakespeare's lifetime include the Simnel cake. There's some argument over where the word Simnel cake came from, but it was a cake that was popularly used to break the fast after Lent, and it was baked with 11 marzipan balls to nod to the disciples. Other Tudor period celebrations include the Morris dance and the Maypole, which were both designed to celebrate the coming of spring. There is a reference to a tradition called Jack in the Green, and I can't find anyone that will say that it was explicitly an Easter celebration. Some people say it was for Easter. Some people say Jack in the Green is more of a May Day celebration, but it was There were guilds in the 16th and 17th century who would employ people to build garland. And then the garlands got so elaborate that when you would carry them around, an entire man would be covered in a garland. And so it became known as the Green Man, or later Jack in the Green. And so this was going on in Shakespeare's lifetime. Another popular one was hot cross buns. Those would get made on Good Friday. I also saw a reference to planting parsley as being some kind of good luck around this time of year, but I couldn't find anything specific about whether or not that was Easter or just springtime. One Easter celebration that is, or Easter tradition rather, that is mentioned in Shakespeare's plays is called clacking. And it was a special container that had a lid that you could clack. And the poor would clack these containers to show that it was empty and to beg for money or eggs. Also, earlier I mentioned Black Monday. Black Monday was called that because the Monday after Easter was considered unlucky. And it got its start from that because back in 1360, Edward III was laying in front of Paris, and him and his soldiers were out there, and the weather was so bad that the weather actually killed the horses and the soldiers in a worse way than the battles. And so the Monday after Easter became known as Black Monday. Those are some of the traditions that William Shakespeare would have enjoyed when he was celebrating Easter during his lifetime. And while he didn't have Cadbury, Lindor, or Reese's, or little marshmallow peeps, he did celebrate the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, along with a toast to the new beginnings that start with spring. That's it for this week here at That Shakespeare Girl. I am a little under the weather this week, as you can probably hear, but I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new about the Bard. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe. Every like and subscribe helps information about William Shakespeare reach more people. And as you know, as Shakespeareans, we love our friends. So hit the subscribe button and become our friend, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.